The Israel-Palestine conflict continues with no end in sight. Hundreds of people have been killed in that conflict, which started over the weekend. The African National Congress is calling for peace in the Gaza Strip. What is the governing party's official position then on this war, which does not seem to have any end in sight, at least at the moment? Let's get some perspective then and speak to the ANC's Chairperson of International Relations Subcommittee, Nomvula Mokonyane, who talks to us from Belfast this morning. That's in Northern Ireland. Good morning to you, ma'am. Let's begin the conversation with a historic context here. Talk to us about those who may not be aware of the ANC's ties with Britain's Labour Party, including Northern Ireland's Sinn Féin Socialist Democratic Party. Talk to us about how that relationship has evolved.
Thank you very much, Xoli, and thanks for inviting us. We here executing our historical mission, a mission that seeks to promote a better Africa and a better world, learning from past experiences and appreciating our diversity. We have had a very strong bond with the Labour Party of Britain in the days of the banning of the African National Congress, in fostering international solidarity with the people of South Africa. The ANC was welcomed by the British community. The Labour Party played a very pivotal role in terms of promotion of the anti-apartheid movement. When there was high levels of repression and the promotion of sanctions, the Labour Party in Britain was in the forefront of doing an excellent job around the isolation of South Africa, as well as canvassing the world to support that apartheid is a crime against humanity. We have had our own struggle veterans and freedom fighters such as Comrade President Tambo, who also spent most of the time here in the United Kingdom. We have had Father Trevor Huddleston and many others who actually did a lot of work in the United Kingdom. So other than Lusaka, the office in London was very, very strategic in terms of mobilization and raising awareness, and the link even going beyond just the Labour Party, but the trade unions, because the United Kingdom is also known historically as an area where you have a lot of organized trade union movements. As we speak now, the Labour Party has not been in power for the past 13 years. They've repurposed themselves, they've renewed themselves, and their work going to the 2024 elections is about a decade of renewal, a decade of self-correction, reconnecting with the masses. And that is also linked to how we viewed our work now going into the next general elections, but coming from our national 55th conference about renewal and unity. There is a lot in common, including on the international front. As the conference was proceeding there, they were able to also recommit towards the call for ending the blockade in Cuba, the solidarity program with the people of Palestine. And of course, we have also agreed to continue engaging on the issues related to the conflict in Ukraine and Russia. We are now here in Belfast. Historically, we know Sinn Féin and the Ireland Resistance Army. They have been allies of the African National Congress. We have worked a lot. Comrades such as Comrade Thabo Mbeki, comrades such as Comrade Aziz Bahad, comrades such as Ronnie Castrals have done a great deal of work here, exchanging experiences about a negotiated settlement. And it's so coincidental that we're sitting here in Belfast today at a time where there's turmoil in Israel and in Palestine. And together we agree that it is only through a peaceful settlement that there can be prosperity, that we need also the international law that is not inconsistent but accommodates everybody and makes the very multilateral platforms to have credibility in how they deal with these issues.
Yeah.
And today we'll be spending the whole day engaging around policy issues, our policy positions coming from the 55th conference, looking at the memorandum of understanding. They themselves are going into elections, and they're quite certain that Sinn Féin will actually prevail. They have already shown signs also, like the Labour Party having won Scotland, that it is possible to consolidate, and all of us together need to interact. They're quite interested to hear about our BRICS agenda and the work that they are very impressed about, that Comrade President Cyril Ramaphosa and other heads of state from Africa have done in talking to everybody in Ukraine and in Russia.
Right.
The work here, Xoli, is about reconnecting and ensuring that in line with our conference resolutions, we are able to shape the future of the world, working together with those that are our sister organizations.
You've spoken at length, and I'm going to immediately launch into the Israel-Hamas conflict, because what you have been doing in that attendance of the Labour Party conference is that you've been listening to their speeches, you've been listening to their position, particularly on where they stand. And there does seem to be a contradiction in terms, because you have recalled how the Labour Party stood in support of the fall of the apartheid government in South Africa. But here they are in this Israel-Palestine conflict. And I just want to quote what the spokesperson for the party's foreign affairs had to say, and that is that there is never a justification for terrorism. Labour stands firmly in support of Israel's right to defend itself. Where does the ANC stand as far as those comments are concerned?
Well, firstly, we have said as the ANC, there's no justification for attacks on ordinary civilians, that on both sides, any loss of life is something that we have to condemn. Secondly, that, as you said, it's Israel and Hamas. Hamas is not the authority of the people of Palestine. It's a group within Palestine. Israel, it's a state which, through their authority, they've declared war against the people of Palestine. We think it's a crime against humanity. We do believe that even in the engagements with the Labour Party, actually, Xoli, there at the conference, they took a stand to say they don't support the conflict taking place there. The shadow minister for Foreign Affairs, they had to move from Liverpool and go to London to be part of the protest in solidarity with the people of Palestine. And they've been able to, in their explanation, they are dealing here with the attack by Hamas, but once more, continuing to say only a two-state solution is the answer. And that secondly, international law must be respected, and it must be effected without actually being inconsistent as to who is to blame. And in this instance, they still believe that it is correct to say Israel is an apartheid state.
Sure. And let's then deal with what the ANC perhaps would have seen itself in the organization called Hamas. In October of 2015, they visited this country and they came specifically to talk with the African National Congress. There was intimation at the time, in fact, that they wanted to set up an office in this country, and that was something that was completely rejected by the Jewish community in South Africa. Today, as we sit, that organization, it's labeled all sorts of names. I'd like to hear from the ANC how you view the organization Hamas.
Hamas is a group of Palestinians that have come together and they've got their own mission and intention. It is not in our responsibility, Xoli, to be the ones who must then decide for the Palestinians. The solutions and the answers rest with the people of Palestine in their diversity, just as we have had ourselves with the right wing, with the conservatives, with the left wing, and everybody, the working class, the middle class, and everybody in South Africa had to be galvanized towards a peaceful solution. And therefore, condemnation of one in Palestine does not help. We still maintain that the work that has been done must continue of bringing everybody, as we have done before, bringing them to South Africa, going into the occupied territories, and interact and find a solution that will bring peace, rather than us being forced to condemn. And on the other side, Xoli, it has to be also understood. The ANC is not anti-Jews. We are against a state that is perpetuating what South Africans have gone through, if not worse.
Yeah.
Secondly, we oppose any position that seeks to undermine the right of people towards self-determination. Thirdly, based on our own historical experience, we do believe that the use of state power against innocent people cannot and must not be something that pushes us now to even forget what has caused the very aggrieved people to take this particular position. There are resolutions of the United Nations, Xoli, that are still not honored until today.
So let me latch on to, I'm sorry to interrupt you because of time constraints. I want to quickly latch on to the historic experiences of the ANC. I'm seeking to refine my question here. And it is simply this. The ANC, before liberation, was viewed as a terrorist organization. And it is only after people like Nelson Mandela were able to galvanize the world, and indeed Oliver Tambo, when he was in London, was able to galvanize the world in order to see what is happening in South Africa, that we were ultimately, as a nation, seen as people who were oppressed, particularly black people. So where I'm going with this is that the ANC, having been once labeled a terrorist organization, that's exactly the same description that is ascribed to Hamas. Does the ANC view Hamas as some kind of liberation fighters for the people of Palestine, given what they are being accused of, and that is to use civilians as human shields?
We will not, and we refuse to be forced to characterize any formation as a terrorist organization. You just referred to Madiba. It only happened post-2000 that the United States lifted Madiba's status from being a terrorist. What we need to deal with is what is leading to this particular situation. Naming people and labeling will not help the situation. We must also be able, as you raise this question, Xoli, appreciate also what has been the force behind the formation of Hamas. That is maybe something that we also need to deal with going forward. What is of importance is to call for the unity of the Palestinians, help them to come together so that then united they can be in a position to find one another. But take it back then to the United Nations and to all other multilateral formations that somebody must take the responsibility. At some point, we were forced as South Africa to believe what was resolved in the United Nations around issues of Iraq, Syria, and Libya. And yet today, we refuse any temptation to make us condemn the people of Palestine under the group of Hamas as terrorists. In actual fact, the act of terror is that is being perpetuated by a state and pronounced by a head of state that then says we are going to destroy women and children. And on both sides, we need a voice that says there's never been a peaceful solution out of these kind of attacks.
All right.
And hence the ANC is open to talk to everybody, even with Israel. Our intention is not to just condemn and not find solutions, as we have done even with Russia and Ukraine, talking to all sides.
Okay.
Making everybody to learn from our own direct experiences. I started protesting against apartheid Israel at the age of 16. I'm now 60. We can't continue doing that. It's just not right.
Final
there are now
question to you.
16-year-olds that are continuing to do that. We must make Israel to account.
Final question to you. As you say, there has to be a voice that preaches peace between these two warring sides. The United States, I'd like to hear from the ANC what you think of the role of the United States of America, its president pledging to support Israel with military equipment, among other assistance. And so my question is, here is a country that sees itself as an exporter of democracy in other nations or to other nations. Do you believe that their role here is that of an organ or a country that is seeking to establish peace, or is their role destructive, really?
Supply of arms is not an act of bringing peace, because arms are used to destroy lives. It's an unfortunate act by the United States of America, and it is also, again, the issue of dominance, because rather than them going out and making that public statement of supporting and supplying Israel with arms, they should be going to the United Nations and say, can we now move on and ensure that the resolutions of the United Nations are adhered to, and bring those that they believe are their friends to the table and move forward. And I think the ANC is better placed. South Africans are better placed to can deal with these issues, because ours is not an anti-Jews stance. Ours is against a system, just as we fought the system called apartheid and came together, sat with those who presided over the apartheid system and found a negotiated settlement.
Thank you very much for your time. Nomvula Mokonyane, the ANC's head of International Relations Subcommittee.